The cold rain slicks the pavement outside the storefront. It's early morning, the city's still shaking off sleep, but this street is unnervingly quiet. A single sheet of paper is taped to the glass door, stark white against the dark interior. Forcible closure. Legal action pending. Beneath it, a smaller notice from the landlord, declaring the lease terminated immediately. I sit across the street in my car, the engine off, watching. The mist from the rain clings to the glass, distorting the view, but I don't need to see clearly. I feel it, a hollow ache in my chest, surprisingly absent of triumph. Just emptiness and a profound coldness. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. Life before felt like a sturdy, well-built house. Not a mansion, but solid, comfortable. Walls painted in warm, familiar colors. A routine hummed through the rooms. Coffee in the morning, school runs, dinner together, the quiet evening sounds of a family settled into itself. My husband, Mark, was the foundation, I thought. The steady presence. Our daughter, Lily, was the light in every window, her future the careful landscaping we nurtured in the yard. Her college fund wasn't just a savings account, it was a promise. A tangible piece of the future we were building for her, brick by careful brick. We talked about it often, Mark and I. The universities she dreamed of, the possibility of her spreading her wings. It was our project, our shared hope. We sacrificed for it, skipped vacations, drove older cars. It felt right. It felt like love, like commitment. The first crack wasn't a thunderclap, but a whisper. A shift in the air I couldn't place. Mark was different, distant. Late nights weren't spent working, or at least, the work stories didn't add up. His phone became an extension of his hand, facing down on surfaces, notifications silenced. A new sharpness in his voice when I asked simple questions. He started showering the moment he got home. Washing away what? The scent of the day? Or something else? I told myself it was stress. Work was demanding. Everyone goes through phases. I painted over the cracks, pretending they weren't there. Then came the earthquake. It wasn't a dramatic reveal in a movie, no lipstick on a collar or a burner phone. It was clinical. A bank statement. An innocent query about the automatic transfer into Lily's college savings account, the one that had always gone through like clockwork on the 3rd of the month. I logged in, expecting to see the deposit, maybe check the balance, imagine the number growing towards dorm rooms and lecture halls. The number was still there, but it wasn't growing. In fact, it had shrunk. Drastically. A single, massive withdrawal. Labeled cryptically. Not tuition. Not books. Just a string of numbers. My blood ran cold. My fingers trembled on the keyboard. I clicked through transactions, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The money, Lily's money, our sacrifice was gone. Swallowed whole. I confronted him that night, the paper shaking in my hand. The warm, familiar living room suddenly felt alien, hostile. The air crackled with unspoken accusations. His face, usually open, was a mask. He denied it at first, of course. Fumbled for explanations. A temporary investment, something for our future. His eyes darted away. The lies were clumsy, transparent, insulting in their effortlessness. I pressed him, the fear curdling into a hot, righteous anger. Lily's college fund, Mark. That money. Where did it go? He finally broke, not with a confession, but with a weary, almost petulant admission. It's handled. It's for something important. More important than our daughter's future? More important than a decade of saving and planning? The truth, when it finally dripped out in fragmented sentences, was worse than I could have imagined. It wasn't a bad investment. It wasn't a family emergency. It was her. He used Lily's college fund to help his mistress buy a storefront. A boutique. A dream of hers, funded by the wreckage of ours. The first few weeks were a blur of raw pain and frantic desperation. I called the bank, hoping against hope there was a mistake, a way to reverse it. Their answers were polite, firm, and useless. The transaction was authorized. The funds were gone.
Just like that.
The money I had tracked and nurtured for years vanished into thin air, or worse, into her hands, her future. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. My head spun with logistics and betrayal. How would we pay for college now? Could we take out loans? Could we even get them without the foundation of savings? The practical panic was a cold counterpoint to the burning emotional wound. I looked at Lily, bubbling with teenage energy, talking about college applications, and felt a crushing weight. How could I tell her? How could he do this to her? Confrontations with Mark became circular, toxic. He swung between remorse and anger. "It's my money too," he'd snap, as if that justified stealing from his own child's future for another woman. He accused me of overreacting, of being dramatic. He minimized, deflected, gaslit. He was building walls around himself. Brick by brick, lies mortared with denial. The woman, the mistress, became a phantom limb of my pain. I imagined her, living her dream, built on my sacrifice, on Lily's future. It felt grotesque, unfair. Every picture I saw online of a cheerful new shop, every article about small business owners, felt like a personal taunt. The injustice of it was a physical ache. I tried talking to him, pleading, reasoning, reminding him of Lily, of our past, of everything we had built. It was like talking to a stranger. The man I married was gone, replaced by this defensive, self-serving version who seemed to genuinely believe he was entitled to use our daughter's future as currency for his midlife crisis. He saw the storefront as an investment, a clean break, a new life. He didn't see the gaping hole he'd torn in ours. The house felt heavy with his deception. Every shared object, every photograph, felt tainted. He was still living here, still pretending, and the hypocrisy was suffocating. I walked on eggshells, my mind a constant battleground between fury and despair. I felt paralyzed, trapped. What could I do? He held the power. He had the money. He had made the irreversible move. The legal system felt daunting, expensive, slow. Could I afford a lawyer? Could I fight this? What if I lost? The fear of failure, of leaving Lily with nothing, was immense. It was easier, sometimes, to curl up and surrender to the despair, to accept that this was it. The life we built was rubble, and I was standing in the ruins alone. A moment of clarity came not like a flash of light, but like a slow, hardening frost. I was watching Lily sleep one night, her face peaceful, untouched by the storm raging in our house. I thought of her dreams, her potential, her trust in us. And something shifted inside me. This wasn't just about money anymore. It wasn't just about betrayal. It was about protecting her future, reclaiming what was rightfully hers, and refusing to let him get away with it. Refusing to let his deceit become her burden. In that quiet moment, the paralyzing fear gave way to a cold, sharp resolve. I would fight. I had to. Finding the right lawyer wasn't easy. The first few consultations were disheartening. They talked about lengthy divorce proceedings, asset division, child support, standard stuff. They didn't grasp the core of it. The specific, deliberate act of taking the college fund and using it for this. It felt like they saw numbers, not the scorched earth of a family's dreams. I explained the story again and again, the words feeling flat, inadequate to describe the depth of the wound. I started to lose hope again. Maybe there was no special angle. Maybe it was just another messy divorce, and Lily's money was just
gone.
Then I met Sarah. Sarah wasn't just a divorce lawyer. She was sharp, focused, and she listened differently. When I finished explaining, she didn't offer platitudes. She leaned forward, her eyes intent. He used a designated college fund, she said, more a statement than a question. For a third party's commercial venture, she paused, a calculating look on her face. And he did it without your knowledge or consent, using what was arguably joint or even trust property set aside for a specific purpose. My heart gave a small, hopeful lurch. She saw it. She saw the specific wrong. We talked for hours. She asked questions no one else had asked. Details about the accounts, the timing, how he handled his business affairs, how the mistress's business was structured, if I knew any details about the property itself, the lease, the purchase. I poured out everything, the sordid details of the affair, the financial history, the scraps of information I'd pieced together in my misery. Sarah saw a path not just through divorce court, but a direct attack on the theft itself. She explained legal concepts I barely understood: fraudulent conveyance, constructive trust, the potential for an immediate injunction. She talked about tracing the funds, proving the specific money from the college account went directly to the storefront. It wouldn't be easy, she warned. It would be aggressive. It would provoke him. But it was a way to potentially recover the specific funds, or force the sale of the asset they bought, rather than just fighting for a share of whatever was left. It was risky, but it felt like the only way to strike at the heart of his betrayal, to dismantle the monument he'd built to his deceit using Lily's future. The decision solidified in my mind. Yes, this was it. We would go after the storefront. We would get Lily's money back. While Sarah worked, the tension at home was unbearable. Mark sensed the shift in me. My quiet despair had been replaced by a steely politeness, a distance he couldn't penetrate. He tried to bait me, to provoke a fight, but I held back, channeling every ounce of energy into gathering documents, answering Sarah's questions, waiting. Waiting was the hardest part. He became more frantic. He started moving other money around, trying to hide assets, anticipating a standard divorce battle. He was preparing for the fight he thought was coming. He had no idea the target wasn't our shared bank account, but the very foundation of his new life. Sarah warned me that once we made our move, there was no going back. It would be public. Messy. He would likely lash out. The mistress would know. But the thought of striking back, of hitting him where it hurt the most, not his wallet in general, but the symbol of his betrayal, fueled me. This wasn't just about restitution, it was about vindication. It was about proving that some lines cannot be crossed without consequence. The daughter's college fund. That was sacred. And he had violated it in the most vulgar way possible. Sarah found it. A crucial piece of information. A specific legal detail about the transfer of funds, combined with a technicality regarding the business registration or the property acquisition itself. Something he, or perhaps more likely, the mistress and her advisors, had overlooked in their haste or arrogance. It wasn't just money shuffled around. It was the provenance of this specific money, tied to a specific asset, acquired under circumstances that made it vulnerable. The legal term was complex, but the meaning was simple. We could argue that the storefront itself was effectively built on stolen property, Lily's property. Sarah outlined the plan. We wouldn't file for divorce immediately. We would file a specific, targeted civil action against him and potentially the mistress's business entity, seeking an emergency injunction. An order from the court to freeze the asset, specifically the storefront property and its operations, based on the provably fraudulent source of the acquisition funds. If the judge granted it, the business would be shut down immediately, pending a full hearing. It was a high-stakes gamble. It required irrefutable evidence linking the stolen funds directly to the property and demonstrating irreparable harm, Lily's lost college future, that only an immediate closure could mitigate, preventing the asset from being sold or further complicated. We worked through the nights, assembling the evidence. Bank records, emails, texts from his phone I'd quietly accessed months ago, before he changed passwords, a desperate, painful act, timelines, property records. Sarah's team dug deep, uncovering the paper trail, connecting the dots from the college fund withdrawal to the business registration, to the purchase deposit on the storefront lease or property. It was cold, hard proof. Money flows don't lie, even when people do. The paper trail was more powerful than any emotional argument. The day Sarah filed the injunction was a blur of tension. My hands shook as I signed the affidavits, swearing to the truth of the devastating story. It was official now. The machine was in motion. There was no turning back. Sarah warned me that the judge might deny the emergency order, that we might only get a standard hearing date weeks away. But she was quietly confident. The case was strong. the evidence compelling, and the nature of the theft from a child's future savings added a layer of moral outrage that even dry legal proceedings couldn't ignore. We waited. The silence in the house was deafening. Mark still didn't know. He was busy, smug even, navigating his new life, probably discussing expansion plans for the boutique over expensive dinners with her. He thought he was untouchable. He thought he was clever. He thought he had won. Then, late afternoon, my phone rang.
Sarah.
Her voice was calm, professional, but I heard the flicker of triumph in her tone. The judge granted the emergency injunction, she said. Effective immediately. The court order is being served on your husband, the mistress, and the landlord right now. They have to cease all operations and vacate the premises by end of business today. The store is being shut down.
Shut down.
Overnight.
Just like that.
My knees buckled. I sank onto the nearest chair, the phone still pressed to my ear, Sarah's words washing over me.
Shut down.
The monument to his betrayal. The place where he had invested my daughter's future was being legally padlocked. The victory wasn't loud or dramatic in that moment. It was quiet, internal. A releasing of breath I felt like I'd been holding for months. Sarah continued, explaining the next steps, the upcoming hearing, the process of potentially forcing a sale or reclaiming the funds. But I barely heard her. The image filled my mind. That storefront, dark, empty, a piece of paper on the door. I didn't hear from Mark that night. Not a call, not a text. The silence from his side was the loudest sound imaginable. He was reeling, blindsided. The man who thought he was so cunning, so ahead of the game, had been checkmated by a piece of paper and the law. He didn't see it coming. He expected a fight over bank accounts. He got a surgical strike on the heart of his new life. The next morning I drove. I needed to see it, needed to feel the reality of it. The rain was a fitting backdrop. Gray, cold, relentless. Pulling up across the street, seeing that official notice on the door, the dark windows, the absence of any sign of life. It was real. He wasn't opening for business. She wasn't selling her wares. Their little dream, built on stolen hope, was over.
I saw him then.
Standing on the wet sidewalk, staring at the door. His shoulders slumped, his face pale, etched with disbelief and something close to despair. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. The smugness was gone. The arrogance had evaporated. He was just a man standing in the rain, looking at a locked door that represented the sudden, brutal end of his escape route. He tried the handle, pointlessly, shook his head slowly, pulled out his phone, likely calling Sarah, or his own lawyer, or maybe even her. I watched him for a long time, hidden in the anonymity of my car. There was no grand confrontation, no dramatic speech. Just him, the shut store and the rain. And me, watching. Did I feel triumphant? A little, maybe. A thin, sharp edge of satisfaction. But mostly there was just the ache. The deep sadness for the life that was gone, for the trust that was shattered beyond repair, for the man I thought I knew. He had traded his family's future for a fleeting fantasy and ended up losing everything. And he had no idea I was the one who had pulled the legal trigger, that I had worked with Sarah to use his own egregious act, the theft of the college fund, as the weapon to bring his new world crashing down. The aftermath is quiet, clinical. The legal process continues, unwinding the mess he made. The storefront remains shut, a silent monument to his folly. The fight for Lily's money is far from over, but the crucial first battle was won. We stopped him. We prevented him from solidifying his new life with her using our daughter's future. He is facing the consequences, swift and severe, because he was too arrogant to think he could be caught, let alone outmaneuvered by the wife he underestimated. Lily still doesn't know the full, ugly truth.
Not yet.
There will be a time, when she's older, when she can understand the complexities, the betrayals, the lengths gone to protect her. For now, she knows things are changing, that mom and dad are separating. She sees the tension, the sadness, but she doesn't carry the weight of the college fund theft. That's my burden, and Sarah's work, and the quiet, Cold victory won on a rainy morning outside a shut storefront. The house is quieter now. Emptier. It feels less like a home and more like a space I'm occupying while I figure out the next steps. The future I envisioned is gone, replaced by something uncertain, something I have to build again, brick by careful brick, from the ground up. But this time, I'm holding the trowel. This time, I know exactly who to trust. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear a version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.